Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. And yes, we are now doing another Lessons in Insanity. And recently, on my trip out east, I had the opportunity to take my son over to the home of George Washington, the first president of the United States, and pretty interesting visit. I can tell you that in under the guise of political correctness and the new wokeism that is taking over the United States and quite a few other nation states as well, I can tell you that the tour that I undertook definitely is now seeing the taint of wokeism occurring. And today, I was looking at a couple of different things on the news and just booting up the old Roku player, and I thought back to my trip to Mount Vernon, and I thought to myself, what would our founding fathers think of the United States today? What would George Washington think if he were to see just two things today that I observed in just my daily routine? Well, one thing I did notice on the news that allegedly, per the mainstream media, tens of thousands of protesters converged on Washington, D.C., down at the mall. And I'll try to take you there here real quick on the good old Google Earth. And during this protest, in which tens of thousands of individuals rallied, and that is their right to peaceably assemble and address the government for grievances. But in this case, it was very, very interesting because this group of allegedly tens of thousands of individuals were looking for more government control. And I just again thought, what would George Washington think right now if he could see this group of allegedly 10,000 people screaming and chanting for more government control, putting the jackboot on the constitutional freedoms in the United States. And again, I just wonder what George Washington would think, or any of the founding fathers for that matter, in terms of what we are seeing. I can tell you, freedom is scary. And I would much rather live in a society where I am free, in which there is some inherent risk of being accosted or harm, but generally speaking, the damage that is done by that sort of issue is much less than if your society, if your government is taken over by a tyrannical form of government. Ask the Germans in 1939 and onwards. Ask the Russians, as maybe they made a mistake in terms of what type of government that they were looking for, and eventually they obviously paid the price under Stalin as well. So once you lose certain freedoms and you have a tyrannical ruler in place, the risk of tens of millions dying and not being able to do much about that, I would say, is simply unacceptable and worth the possible risk of more or less some localized issues that a free society just has to deal with. I would say that fast cars kill thousands of people a year. So why don't we put governors on cars? To maybe cars can go a maximum of 45 miles per hour. It would save lives, probably tens of thousands of lives per year. If anybody drinks, why not put a sensor inside the vehicle? The technology now exists to where you simply cannot drive your car. And that would save thousands of lives per year. But to give up your freedoms and your rights to defend yourself from the possibility of a tyrannical government taking over, and it absolutely eventually, at some point in time, occurs in most societies where an existing government becomes tyrannical, or what you would define as evil, under the perception of a great many. Thus, you have to have the ability to remove that government. And unfortunately, these folks were demanding more government control that would not allow the civil populace to remove said government at some point in the future, much less just to defend your household. And you have that right as well. Another interesting thing that I saw that I wonder what George Washington would say. I turned on my Roku player, and on the far right there is usually an advertisement, and this was for the Discovery Plus, I believe, and the advertisement for the television show was My 1,000-Pound Sister, and I had to do a double take of what is that. And it was a very unhealthy person sitting in a chair who I assume weighs 1,000 pounds. And yeah, it was called My 1,000-Pound Life with My 1,000-Pound Sister. And I thought, again, what would George Washington say to that? Where we are in a society now where a person can basically eat themselves to death. So much abundance has been blessed upon the United States that we are now, and then the morbidity of the actual, the cultural debauchery of having a mass-marketed television show about life with my 1,000-pound sister is just something that is really hard for me to get my head around. And at what point does America say enough is enough? This is trash. This is crap, and it needs to just disappear. Life with my 1,000-pound sister and allegedly tens of thousands of individuals protesting and marching for an increase in government control. What would good old George say? I bet he's turning over in his grave right now. Anyway, another lesson in insanity. Have a good day.